So in this video, I'm going to show you how to hang a drywall ceiling. We're going to do it over this plaster. And I'm going to show you how I do that such that we get the screws in all the joists or all the framing and we don't have any critical errors. And plus, in the end, I am going to have a pretty cool, pretty sweet power tool giveaway for you. So don't miss out on that. You're going to learn a lot of great tips in terms of how to hang drywall today, but we're also going to share a really special tool that can make cutting out holes in the ceiling, like for this fan here, super easy. So let's jump into the video. This purple board is 1/2 inch thick. The reason why I'm using it is because we're keeping the plaster on the ceiling. So what I'm going to do is mark off, fortunately I opened up the ceiling, I'm going to mark off where the joists are. So here's one for example. They're just to the right of this framing right here that's in the bathtub. So I know that, like, if I mark this off here, here, and here, that's where I'm going to put my screws for the drywall. Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is get an exact measurement between this framing member and this wall. Actually, it's about 52 3/4. So it's 52 3/4 here. We're going to go out about 4 feet because what we're going to do is cut the drywall piece that I have is a 4x8 piece of drywall. I'm just going to cut it to about, what did I say, 52 3/4. I'm going to take a 1/4 inch off of that. So I'm going to make it 52.5 inches. Because when we get to here, we're going to put Schluter Curdy board up. That's going to be 1/2 inch, so it'll cover that gap. Over here, I'm going to be mounting 1/2 inch purple board on that wall, so it'll cover the 1/4 inch gap, or I'm sorry, the little gap on that side. So I'm not really worried about shaving a 1/4 inch off the ceiling drywall I'm going to mount over the plaster. But one additional tip is, make sure you go out the in this case, because it's 8 by 4 foot sheet, I'm going to go out 4 feet and I'm going to measure what the width is right about here, because if it's not 52 3/4 and it's something else, I need to adjust for my cut. You know what, actually we're going to go out about 47 inches because if I go out 48 inches, there won't be enough room for the other piece of drywall to meet up with this joist. So I'm going to go out about 47 inches, and at that 47 inch mark, it's about 52 5/8. So it's not 52 3/4 here. So I need to kind of make a tapered cut, but that's fine. It's not hardwood drywall. So the other thing I'm going to do is mark the center of the joist that's up in the ceiling. Because what we're going to do is split the difference. So I'm only going to come out to about half the width of that joist for my drywall. So I can butt up the other piece of drywall in the center of that joist. I'm going to mark the location of that on the framing here. After a bit more measurement, what I found was the total width of this piece is going to be 45 5/8. The next step is to measure out about 52 3/8, like I said. And this will be 52.5, because remember, I'm taking a little bit off each side. And I'm just going to cut this with a utility knife. This sheet of drywall does have a tapered edge. It's right here. We're going to butt this up against the wall, the doorway wall, so that the other tapered edge is in the center of the ceiling, and I'll be able to make a pretty good taping job. It's always nice to have the 2 tapered edges meet up, so that when you go to tape, your taping is made a lot easier by that tapered edge, and you'll be able to fill it in and not have to use too much joint compound. Now, since I'm not the most mechanically inclined person, I labeled the drywall with door on this side and window on this side. The reason why I did that is so when I hoist this above my head, I will have the orientation correct. The other thing is I labeled 14 inches from the edge. This is where the first joist is located. And then another 30 1/4 inches in from the edge. That's where the second joist is located. So I'm going to pre-drill some screws into these locations so that when I do put this above my head, I can quickly screw it into the joist. 2 additional tips. Number one, I'm using 2-inch coarse threaded drywall screws. Always use coarse threaded drywall screws for wood framing, fine threaded drywall screws for metal framing. So 2 inches because my plaster is about 1/4 inch, then the lath is about 1/4 inch, and then the new drywall is going to be 1/2 inch. So that takes up a full inch. I want this screw to go 1 inch into the joist, so that's why the 2-inch screws. And then you should always be using a dimple bit when embedding your drywall screws into the drywall. This makes a perfect dimple or embeds the drywall screw perfectly into the paper and it won't tear out the paper. There's a train going through the neighborhood. Whew. Now, to make life a little bit easier on myself, I'm not feeling particularly strong this morning because I've been up since 4. I'm going to screw in a piece of 2x4 right above the door here. That way when I can slide this end of the drywall up over this 2x4, it'll hold in place. That'll give me enough time to screw in the drywall screws on this edge and then come over here. So this will hold the drywall for me while I screw in some of the screws. What's nice about this 2x4 is it takes a lot of the weight off of me. It gives me time to screw these drywall screws into the joist. So that wasn't too bad. That's just up there enough such that it gives me time to go get the screws, go get my dimple bit, and I can put all the screws into the drywall paper such that it doesn't tear the paper. There's where I wrote window on the drywall, so I got that right. Yay! Here's the dimple bit. You need a magnetic bit holder for your impact driver if you're going to be using one of these. Fortunately, there are X's to mark the position of the joist on the drywall. So, you can kind of eye up where that X is on here and where your screws are. And you can use that X as a reference to drive the additional screws. Or you can snap a chalk line across this drywall. Now I want to share something with you. Is this job absolutely perfect? No. I mean, I broke some of the drywall right here. This is the only place where I broke it. And then some of my screws aren't exactly flush. Now, the screws that aren't flush are the ones that are in this tapered edge. So what I'm going to do is obviously tape over it with paper tape and then fill that in with joint compound, and you'll never know that those screws aren't exactly flush with the drywall. But I wanted to let you know, like, it's not perfect. So anyhow, just wanted to get that off my chest. So basically I'm going to cut a piece of drywall very much like I did for this first section. I'm going to put it over top of this section of the ceiling in the bathroom. Now, one last thing before I mount the second piece of drywall. You need to get the center dimension for this fan and mark it somewhere. So we're about 7, doesn't have to be perfect, about 7 inches over. All right, so that's about right here by 19.5. So 7 inches by 19.5 inches. The reason why you want to get the dimensions, the center dimension of the fan, is so you can poke a hole through that and run it over to the side with a rotozip and then cut out this square perfectly. So you have a perfect square revealing your bathroom fan in your ceiling. I'm actually going to put the drywall up. I'm not going to put screws on this edge. I'm only going to put them in about 16 inches. I'm going to let this hang down a little bit, and then I'm going to cut out the piece for the drywall. I mean, the piece for the fan. Okay.
When placing your drywall screws through the ceiling and into the joist, you want them to be no more than 10 to 12 inches apart along the joist.
Like I said, I'm always writing my dimensions down on scrap something. So here we go. This last piece is 4 3/4 inches on one end. So, this is right here on that end. This 5 5/8 is on this end, so it's right here. And then the total length is this 52 number right there. But what I'm doing is, again, I'm subtracting 1/4 inch from all these dimensions just to ensure that this little piece actually fits. One thing here I wanted to share with you. This is the tapered edge. This is my 4.5 inches on this side. That is my 5 3/8 on this side. I want the tapered edge to butt up against the other tapered edge on the ceiling, so that when I go to tape my pieces of drywall, it's so much easier to blend in the two pieces and make them look like one. Now I have to measure over for where the fan is. Unfortunately, I did write the dimension on this piece of lumber here. This is definitely where the center is, or close to it. Now what we're going to do is use a rotozip to cut out a perfect square opening for where that fan is. And by the way, we actually have another video showing you how to do this, and you can watch it right there. But this video is a little bit different because the fan setup on the inside is a bit trickier. There are actually wires and stuff hanging down, so I have to be a bit careful when I cut this out with the rotozip. In one of our last videos where we hung drywall, Steve did use a rotozip, and it did not have the dustless technology. Now I want to tell you, rotozip did reach out to us after watching that video and asked us to do a sponsored video, which was a no-brainer because we already use rotozip. And what they did was they sent out the Rotosaw Plus Dust Vault, and that's what I'm going to be using today. Now, if you've watched any of my videos in the past, you know that safety is one of my primary concerns. Sometimes you forget on the job to wear a dust mask or wear goggles, etc. So if the tools are doing some of that safety work for you, that's a good thing. So I just assembled the dust vault onto the rotozip, and I'm going to show you how I did that. Very straightforward after you do it the first time. There's a symbol on the rotozip and there's a symbol on the coupler. You want to line those two symbols up like so, and then clamp it tight. Install the collet that you need for the specific bit that you'll be using. This is a collet for an 1/8 inch bit. I'm just going to slide it into the rotozip. Press the locking button and spin the fan in place. You're supposed to use this little tool here, but I find that it's just easier to spin it in place. Now, if you're more comfortable using the tool, you can just spin it like this. But you don't want to fully tighten it. You want to leave it a little bit loose. So this is the dust vault. They also call this the fan housing. There's a hole on this side and there's a hole on this side. You just line those two up. And there's a thumb screw that you use to lock it in place. And then you push your bit in the whole way as far as it'll go. And then you can bring it out by a maximum of 1.5 inches or 1.25 inches. So in this case, I'm going to bring it out by about 3/4 of an inch. I'm going to press this button again on the bottom. So here, you have to use the little wrench here to tighten this down. And that's all there is to it. It's pretty simple to install. And this is the dust vault. This is what's going to catch all the dust from the drywall.
Now, there is sensitive wiring up in this bathroom fan, and that's why I'm running the rotozip across the span of the fan so that I don't hit the wiring. I know it's hard for me to explain this, but I did have a strategy. And then what you can do is you can run the rotozip counterclockwise like I'm doing here and cut out a little sliver of the drywall to make sure that you're up inside the fan. It's just a nice thing that you can do to double check that you're actually cutting out the drywall that you need to cut out. And then you can use the rotozip along the inside edge of the fan and cut along it. Allow it to guide you along that inside metal edge, and it'll cut out a perfect square or rectangle in this case. Now, I am mechanically challenged, and I meant to do this counterclockwise, but I did it clockwise, and I actually had a little bit of a mistake up there in the corner, but not a problem.
Well, there you go. That is how you hang a drywall ceiling. I hope that you liked today's video. Now for the surprise. Down in the comments, we're going to be giving away, a rotozip with the dust vault. So number one, tell me why you need the rotozip. Number two, how you're going to use it, so what project you're using it on. And number three, also feel free to add your suggestions on drywall. So I'm sure I missed something in this video. I'm not perfect, right? So if you have a drywall tip or suggestion, add it down in the comments and you'll be randomly entered into the rotozip giveaway. All right, so it's really that simple. And when you're done adding your comment, you may want to head back on over to homerepairtutor.com and sign up for our free newsletter, because that way you won't miss out on our awesome giveaways like today's. And you'll also learn about home improvement via our tutorials, which are written and in video format. All right, so down in the comments, I'll read what you have to say about drywall tips and suggestions, and you'll be randomly entered into the RotoZip giveaway. That's it for today. Thanks so much for watching. I love our community. You're awesome, especially if you watch every week. So thank you so much. All right, we'll see you soon. Take care. Again, fun times doing this with the light here, camera there, ceiling here. I feel like I'm in the circus.